Hello, my favourite time of the evening when it's really hot, like 7:30, and in one of my favourite walking spaces, because there's nobody here other than Big M, my partner, and my daughter are like running somewhere over there. Listen, I've got so much to say that yet again, this will be a video of two because you do not have all day to listen to my reflections over the weekend. One of the things that I talked about, gosh, I can't even remember, because like all my videos just blur into one at some point. There's a lot of people who are posting and writing and just like coming out of their shell in lots of different ways, not just black people, but other people who are now going, do you know what, like this is not cool. Why aren't companies doing more to address racism? Why aren't they committing to being anti-racist? Why are some board of directors still thinking that this is not a thing? Why are they still digging their heels in? And so more and more of us, it's almost like in the face of resistance from that point of view, there's a lot of people who like going, no, 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 I thought they would have got it by now, i.e., I thought they would have got it without me having to do or say anything or without me having to sacrifice anything. But now I can see that they're not. It's very difficult for me to keep turning the other cheek and, pretend like I can't see things, and I can't see what's happening. And, for a lot of us, and I'm going to group us all together, it's making us feel very uncomfortable. On some days, it makes me super annoyed, like really frustrated, but also like really bloody tired. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, listen, I know magically the world is not going to be fixed tomorrow. Even if we fix this issue with racism and structural racism, right, there are so many other things that aren't right in the world. So it's not as if like this is the last bit before, there's utopia. But there is a part of me that just thinks all this time, energy, and effort, and money in some cases, that a lot of black people are putting into every single day, like showing up and giving our truth and speaking our reality and talking about our lived experiences. Supporters and allies, or whatever you want to call people who are like pro equality and pro eradicating racism, the amount of energy and sacrifice that they are making, particularly when some of them are being rejected by the very people who look like them because they feel like they are traitors to the race, even though we know that race, there's no such thing, right? And all of that energy to fix what is fundamentally a broken pattern, broken systems, broken procedures, legislation, and fundamentally pushing against people of influence. Because for every single individual who is not for the movement, who wants to troll me or my friend or people I'm connected to and try and make out like we are somehow less for, or we're too extreme for what we're talking about and we're taking things too far and we're making people feel uncomfortable, and we're creating like a really negative space when people just want to focus on getting their heads down and getting through coronavirus. A lot of those individuals at like grassroots level may have that opinions, but their opinions won't necessarily stop us from making progress in this area. It's when those opinions are held by very senior and very influential people, whether it's in government, whether it's in business, whether it is in just like society as a whole. And all of that energy that we put in, it's almost like nobody tells you, that like when you're pushing for something that you feel really strongly about, or all of a sudden like you're shedding layers of conforming and assimilation, and like what Abby says, you're taking the mask off your face, and all of that sort of stuff. Like in our minds you can think is nothing but freedom and sweetness and light, and like there is, don't get me wrong, I'm not going, oh my god, don't do it, but like let me tell you, like the sacrifice that you have to make is just the fact that like every time I open up my LinkedIn, I know I'm going to see some bullshit. Every time I check my email, I know somebody is going to send me something, because you know what, people are brazen these days. Oh my god, people are brazen. Do you know what I mean? And brazen because like why would you leave an email trail of your bullshit? But and just kind of trying to find very different ways to get me to be quiet or turn down the volume a little bit, or try and distract me over other things over here. You know, they want my opinion of this, you know, they're setting up this project about here, like it would be good, you know, or suggesting alternative ways for me to get my message out. And these ways are not in addition to what I'm doing, they are alternatives. That's a very key word. You know, I just think, like, you know, sometimes life would be so much easier if I just did what I've done for 17 years and pretended like this didn't bother me and turned a blind eye and didn't speak up and, you know, complained to my friends behind closed doors, but didn't like publicly do a lot. Like, you see, there are moments where I've vented my spleen in some ways, but not to this level consistently. And like, for some days, and you know, I'll have some weeks where I just feel to myself like, this is all right. I'm making progress. I feel like I'm making a difference. I feel like I'm having an impact. And then you kind of hear bullshit, whether it's like the CEO that we were talking, me, Abby, and Leanne were talking about on Friday, who, as a woman in London, do you know what I mean? I'm not going to say anything more before I start like really outing her business, to turn around and in this current climate, to turn around to and say, we're too noisy, like we're too reckless, we're charging people in the wrong way, we're too negative, we're too, you know, aggressive, we're coming across as angry, and that's not going to be good for our brand, and we've really got to think about our brand. And you know, all of that BS, all of it. And so when you hear that, like, depending on my mood, sometimes I'm like, oh, whatever, do you know what? But then other times you just think to yourself, Jesus Christ, like, I wonder how many more people think like that. And then before you know it, you're taking yourself off this journey over here, which means you start to second guess yourself, until I remember that's what they want you to do. When people say that to me and they reach out with the little suggestions via messages, that's what they want me to do. They want me to be quiet. They want me to just, you know, like, floating back into relative obscurity where they could get away with all their bullshit, you know. And that's not going to happen. But I can't ever sit here and pretend to you like, oh yeah, well, like, I don't care, I don't like, because trust me, that's not the case. Even when I'm working all hours God sends, because I've like got so much to do before I disappear off for 2 weeks at the end of the week. And part of me thinks, I don't even know why I'm doing this. And the other part of me goes, Shereen, you know exactly why you're doing this. But it is that thing about, even when you're trying to do good and universally in the grand scheme of things, it is a good thing. There are so many people who are going to want to take you down. And, you know, you are not human if it doesn't get to you. You are not human if there are some days when you wake up and you just think, is this like worth it? I still think it's worth it. I wouldn't change it, you know, but I'm not going to lie to you and say it's not difficult. I am also very well aware that, you know, as I said, as Black people, there's a lot of us who are now stepping outside of this box that we, you know, were begrudgingly sitting in for a lot of years. And there are some people who just don't like that anymore because we're holding up a mirror to their behaviour. And also, there are some people who can clearly see their own behaviour reflected in some of the things that I say or some of the things that other people are saying, whoever, whatever colour. And that makes them feel very uncomfortable. But you know what? When you're on the wrong side of history, life ain't good for you. That's all I can say. So, you know, that's my Sunday reflections.